February 28, 2026. The sounds of explosions echo through Iran. Operation Epic Fury, a joint US-Israeli decapitation strike, is underway. To the world, it appeared as a sudden plunge into war, but this was the inevitable culmination of a 47-year story, a sequence of revolution, shadow wars, broken deals, and the final countdown. We're going to unravel the timeline of how this long-anticipated conflict moved from a possibility to a reality. This is Alpha Signal. Beyond the headlines, beneath the lies. To truly understand the animosity, we have to rewind to 1951, when Iran elected a fiercely independent prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. His signature policy was the nationalization of Iran's oil industry, which had been under the exclusive control of the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. Mossadegh argued that Iran's vast oil wealth should benefit its own people, not foreign powers. This act of economic self-determination infuriated Britain, which saw its imperial interests threatened. After diplomatic pressure failed, the British MI6 initiated a plot to overthrow Iran's democratic government. They convinced the new Eisenhower administration in the US that Mossadegh was pushing Iran toward communism. In August 1953, the CIA and MI6 executed Operation Ajax, a covert coup. Through bribery, propaganda, and staged riots, they successfully toppled Mossadegh and reinstalled the young Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, as an absolute monarch. This event crushed Iran's democracy and planted a deep, enduring seed of resentment against the West. With the Shah securely in power thanks to American and British intervention, Iran became a key US ally in the Middle East for the next quarter century. On the world stage, he was a reliable partner, but to his own people, he was a brutal dictator. His rule was enforced by the Savak, a secret police force known for systematic torture and the suppression of all dissent. From exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini channeled this popular opposition. Mass protests and strikes paralyzed the country, forcing the Shah to flee and allowing Khomeini to return and seize power. The Islamic Revolution didn't just topple a monarch, it reordered the entire geopolitical landscape. The United States, once the Shah's patron, was recast as the Great Satan. The seizure of the US Embassy in Tehran and the 444-day hostage crisis severed diplomatic ties and forged a deep, lasting animosity. For the new Islamic Republic, exporting its revolution became a core mission. For Washington, a strategic asset had become a dedicated adversary. In the 1980s, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Iran. During the conflict, Iraq used chemical weapons like mustard gas and sarin nerve agents against Iranian troops. While Iraq's chemical weapons program was built with key materials and technology from a wide range of Western companies, particularly from West Germany, the attacks themselves were carried out with a quiet nod from Washington. Declassified CIA documents show the US provided Iraq with intelligence, including satellite imagery and maps, fully aware it would be used to help carry out those chemical attacks. The experience of that brutal 8-year war taught Tehran a critical lesson. It needed a new strategy beyond conventional warfare. Thus, the era of the shadow war began. Iran's answer was asymmetric conflict, built on a network of proxies across the Middle East, the axis of resistance. The most prominent part of this strategy was Hezbollah in Lebanon. Formed during Israel's 1982 invasion, Hezbollah became Iran's most capable proxy, a well-armed and battle-hardened force on Israel's northern border, funded by Tehran. In response, Israel and the US waged their own campaign of sabotage and assassination. By the early 2000s, a new element entered the equation: Iran's nuclear program. When secret enrichment facilities at Natanz and Arak were exposed in 2002, the shadow war threatened to escalate. The world responded with sanctions, but Iran's centrifuges kept spinning, enriching uranium to levels that raised international concern. Regional tensions escalated. Israel, viewing the program as an existential threat, openly discussed preemptive strikes. The standoff continued until 2015, when a diplomatic breakthrough occurred. After years of complex negotiations, Iran and world powers signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. Iran accepted strict limits and enhanced monitoring of its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. For a moment, it seemed that diplomacy had averted the path to war. The deal was not seen as perfect by all parties, but it was the only time the long-running tensions were formally de-escalated. The pause in tensions was brief. In May 2018, the United States unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA. The maximum pressure campaign that followed was designed to cripple Iran's economy through sanctions. This policy was highlighted in May 2024, when a U.S. drone strike assassinated Brigadier General Abbas Nilforushan in Baghdad, while he was reportedly there for de-escalation talks. In response to the deal's collapse, Iran began enriching uranium to 60% purity, a level technically close to weapons grade. After the October 7, 2023 attacks and the ensuing war in Gaza, Iranian-backed groups intensified their attacks, and direct fire was exchanged between Iran and Israel for the first time. Iran launched drone and missile salvos at Israel in April 2024. Israel responded with strikes inside Iran. The shadow war was over. Direct conflict had begun. By June 2025, the situation escalated into a 12-day conflict. Israel destroyed Iranian nuclear sites, the U.S. participated, and Iran fired back at Israeli cities. 2026 began with a final round of diplomacy. The indirect talks in Oman, however, showed that the positions were irreconcilable. In late January, President Trump issued a 10-day ultimatum: permanently end all uranium enrichment and dismantle the entire proxy network, or face military action. As the talks collapsed, the military buildup became apparent. By late February, the U.S. had staged its largest military force in the Middle East since the 2003 Iraq invasion. Over 150 aircraft, including F-22 stealth fighters, arrived at regional bases. 2 carrier strike groups, the USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Abraham Lincoln, took up positions in the Mediterranean and the Arabian Sea, creating overlapping arcs of firepower. On February 24th, during his State of the Union address, President Trump declared the diplomatic window shut, accusing Iran of secretly reviving its weapons program. The final decision had been made. On February 28th, with the talks having failed just days earlier, President Trump bypassed Congress and gave the order. Operation Epic Fury was a go. The initial strikes were extensive. In the largest combat mission in its history, the Israeli Air Force sent 200 jets to hit 500 targets. They struck not just nuclear sites, but also command centers, missile depots, and leadership compounds. Initial reports were fragmented, but one key detail emerged. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the initial assault, eliminating the head of the Iranian state. Iran's retaliation was swift and widespread. Drones and ballistic missiles targeted not only Israel, but also U.S. bases across the Gulf, in Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. The Houthis again obstructed traffic in the Red Sea. This war was about more than a nuclear program or regional proxies. It can be viewed as a calculated move in a larger global power game. consider the events leading up to it. In early 2026, U.S. Special Forces kidnapped Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. Controlling Iran can be seen as a way to deny the Chinese economy a critical energy supplier, impacting a key rival. It also isolates Russia, constraining another great power competitor. Years ago, General Wesley Clark spoke of a Pentagon memo that outlined a plan to take out 7 countries in 5 years, a list that ended with Iran. A common thread among these targets was their relative independence from the Western central banking system. This system, centered on the US dollar, is the architecture through which global finance flows. Membership comes with access to capital, but also adherence to rules and conditions set by a handful of powerful financial interests. Over the decades, actions were taken against countries on that list, leaving Iran as one of the last remaining outside of that sphere. From this perspective, a multipolar world is viewed as a direct challenge to the established, dollar-centric financial order. A country like Iran, operating outside that framework and trading its oil in other currencies, sets a precedent of economic sovereignty that others might follow. This viewpoint suggests that anything less than global alignment is seen as a threat to a unipolar financial order showing signs of fragmentation. This conflict can be seen as the culmination of a campaign against financial independence outside the established system. Operation Epic Fury wasn't a beginning. It was the beginning of the end of a 47-year road that started in the streets of Tehran in 1979. Many nations pay lip service to a rules-based world. But condemnation is often loudest when bombs are dropped by certain countries, and falls to a whisper when dropped by others. Few small countries dare to condemn a superpower that has been at war almost every year of its existence at the UN. To do so is to risk being placed next on the list and have their country flattened and their leaders flatlined. These events demonstrate the law all countries must abide by, the one truth beyond the highfalutin legalistic crap peddled by people pointing to ethics, international norms, rules, and laws. The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. The attack on February 28th was the destination at the end of a road paved over decades, and now the world watches to see where this new road leads. This is Alpha Signal. Subscribe for the reality beyond the narrative.